Holy fuck. Okay.
From international politics.
All right, let's fucking look at. We got Al Jazeera. Need to consider thanking Daddy Putin for all the content. What? Oh, dude, what the fuck? I'm hearing reports. I'm hearing reports about potential movement and like. Wait, hold on. Is this
diplomatic missions that are based here, that were supposed to be based here? The American diplomatic corps was supposed to be based here. They are now in Poland. They are not going to commute back and forth anymore to Ukraine. It just serves to sort of the point that you're making. We don't know where the goalposts are on this conflict. We don't know how far the Russian army
My buddy
is
is
going to
one
take
of those troops stationed in Germany.
that Ukrainians assumed would be safe may no longer be safe, Hallie.
What are you hearing from the Ukrainian government watching? Prosecutors have.
Okay. Let's move back to Al Jazeera.
He's held back on some other measures he could make. Now, in his news conference just a couple of hours ago, he was asked, why aren't you personally sanctioning Vladimir Putin? And he didn't give a clear answer on that. But clearly the Americans are hoping that the sanctions they put in place will be enough to give Vladimir Putin pause for thought. And if it doesn't turn the
White House presser is happening
then
soon.
he's going to start cranking it up with more sanctions, including those targeting Vladimir Putin himself.
And of course, Biden had some very strong remarks about the Russian president's intentions. Any indication as to how the U.S. will respond to this continued attack and destabilization of Ukraine, particularly if the Russians try to force regime change and possibly even take this attack beyond Ukraine's borders?
Well, clearly in Ukraine, the concern is that there's going to be no Americans fighting there and no NATO troops will go into Ukraine either. What they can do is provide financial support, and as we've already seen over the last few months, they've provided extensive training and also lethal force weapons, not just defensive force, but things that they can use if the Russians attack, such as Javelin anti-tank missiles. And they have been using them, we are told, in the few hours that there has been since the Russians crossed the border. The biggest concern, obviously, for Joe Biden and others is any possible attack on NATO countries. And that is why 7,000 more troops are being sent to Germany, and we've already had deployments to countries like Poland and Romania to shore up defences there. The worry would be that if any Russian troops cross the border into either Poland, Romania, or even the Baltic countries, then that would trigger Article 5.
That itself is not too much blood. It's not TOS, but I just don't want to risk it. Sorry.
In New York, and then the US benefited there when they went to war in Afghanistan. And so this is all about trying to contain the situation and perhaps put enough financial pressure on Vladimir Putin, the banking sector, the technology sector, and overall the economy in Russia, and make him think again and perhaps stop what he's doing right now.
Thank you very much. From Washington, Alan Fisher. Well, the Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, says that the United Nations is scaling up its humanitarian efforts in Ukraine and that the protection of civilians has to be a top priority. He also repeated his call for Russia to immediately pull its troops back.
The decisions of the coming days will shape our world and directly affect the lives of millions upon millions of people. In line with the Charter, it's not too late to save this generation from the scourge of war. We need peace.
Well, our diplomatic editor, James Bays, joins us live now from Brussels. And James, I suppose the issue for EU and NATO member states is that they are going to be affected by...
By the way, this chatter is correct. Once again, when Vladimir Putin annexed Crimea, there were celebrations. People celebrated, okay? Right now, people are protesting because they think this is completely unacceptable. And I don't mean like fucking civil society orgs are backing protests or whatever the fuck. Like, this was a deeply unpopular move.
are going to be putting it in place, and some of the sectors are going to be affected. We don't think the SWIFT banking system that Alan was talking about a moment ago is going to be targeted, but I can tell you that one of the delegations here says that the discussions go on, even though they've already put out a statement, and that particular delegation reckons this will be a long meeting going on into the early hours. Certainly as they arrived here, some of the leaders were saying this really needs to be the big one. This needs to be the thing that really forces Putin to think again. Others are saying, no, we need to leave something in reserve. We need to have a next phase of the sanctions ready for whatever could be coming next. So a difference of opinion, although all of them certainly have the same opinion in terms of the scale of what has happened in the actions of President Putin, that he's crossed a line, that he is breaching international law, that he's breaching the UN's charter, and they feel certainly it's the time to send a strong message to the Russian president.
We were just hearing a clip from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, a great deal of concern about the humanitarian impact of an attack on Ukraine. Does Europe have a plan or a strategy for dealing with the human cost of this, with casualties and refugees expected to be one of the consequences?
Well, it's certainly something I actually raised at the weekend with the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, when she spoke to...
Oh, shit. When the U.S. drove 5 waves of NATO expansion eastward and all the way to Russia's doorstep, did it ever think about the consequences of pushing a big country to the wall? Oh, shit. Yeah, they're... Wait, when is this? Is from yesterday. This is not from today. This is from yesterday. I didn't even fucking know that this was the take. Statement contains more parts about historical background on U.S. imperialism. They're saying they cornered a wounded animal. China isn't going to do anything. I mean, it just means that they're going to remain neutral and not, and most likely they're going to, and yes, they're not wrong, but I mean, I said this earlier today where, like, part of the problem is that we think, you know, we can just roll over Russia, that we can just, like, fucking, you know, put sanctions on the table, but not actual sanctions that will harm ourselves, okay? Like, sanctions to a degree that would, like, genuinely hurt the American economy or genuinely hurt the European economies, okay? Obviously, we're not going to go to fucking war, like active war, because that would mean nuclear war. Okay, and ultimately, it's the people of Ukraine that are getting fucked because they're in the middle of the conflict. Yes, they are wrong. The situation has nothing to do with NATO. This is a Russian propaganda point. Stop promoting it. Dude. If someone is a madman, and I said this already, but if someone is a fucking madman and they're crazy, but they tell you, like, I want fucking Ukraine. I want Ukraine. Especially because you are fucking decommunizing, you're fucking healing to the Western influence. You're becoming a threat to my regional sovereignty. If you don't fucking stop it, like, we'll force you to stop it. And to the rest of the Western world, if you're gonna continue with this shit, like, we're gonna show you what we mean. That doesn't mean it's right, by the way. It's not. It is still morally abhorrent behavior. Still absolutely fucking disgusting what Russia did. Okay, completely unacceptable. And I would go so far as to say entirely counterproductive to the ultimate goals that Putin espouses. Okay, I'm not talking about the propaganda points about like denazification or whatever, which of course, ironically will make this country, Ukraine, more nationalist as a consequence of being invaded. That's what countries do historically. They rely on nationalist forces, will do the justifiable violence to save the rest of the country. Will do everything they can when they are being invaded. Okay? Yes, it's NATO's fault for invading another country. Dude, shut up. Shut the fuck up. Like, that's not... I'm in the process of describing to you that this is like Russia... This is Russia's fault. I'm in the process of describing to you that how this is Russia's fault, but you do not want to even fucking comprehend, like, any sort of exhaustion of any sort of concessions. Like, this guy has been spamming this. There's been 15 diplomatic contacts to Russia ongoing since December 2021, 6 of which were by the U.S. This has got to be a fucking bot, okay? I mean, literally, don't know wall. 6 of which were by the U.S., most of any country. You yourself didn't believe the U.S. intelligence and that war would occur. So isn't it easy to complain in hindsight for more diplomacy, Hassan? Okay. None of those conversations, none of those fucking conversations had a single piece to do with revitalizing or having a neutralization conversation. None of them came with concessions. This is what happens when you assume that Russia, a superpower with the world's largest nuclear arsenal, or China, okay, is the same as Iraq, is the same as Afghanistan. I already addressed this issue. America thinks everyone is fucking Iraq. America thinks everyone's Afghanistan. They behave like they're fucking not dealing with another regional power. You think Russia would invade a NATO nation? I don't think so. I don't think Russia would invade a NATO nation. But there are certain nations that Russia will invade because how much NATO has fucking expanded. It's a constant fucking... I mean, to be fair though, I don't even know, honestly. I don't even know at this point. Because, you know, I didn't think that he would invade Ukraine either, especially to the degree that he did. Dude, Ukrainians, shut the fuck up about nationalism not being the same as fascism, okay? Please. Please, dude. Please. Like, you make yourself look fucking stupid when you say that, okay? The person who's claiming to be fucking Ukrainian over and over again in my chat, like, nationalism is not the same as fascism. Yeah, dude, tell me. Yeah, no, you're right. Totally, dude. Like... You're being invaded? Dude, you think that that person is actually fucking, like, literally being invaded at the moment in Ukraine and typing in my chat to defend nationalism, to defend the distinction between nationalism and fascism? Shut the fuck up. Okay. I think you are just another biased American. Nationalism and fascism are not even close. Look at a dictionary. Dude, a lot of fucking people are gonna start saying shit like this.
Back into the 20s over the week.
Yeah, dude, when National Socialists were doing nationalism, it was the nationalism part that made it fascist, not the fake socialism part that made it fascist. I hope you understand that. Nationalism is how you get to fascism, okay? It's literally kind of the component that makes fascism what it actually is. And also, We're talking about the actual fucking
Putin to think again. Others are saying, no, we need to leave something in reserve. We need to have a next phase of the sanctions ready for whatever could be coming next. So a difference of opinion, although all of them certainly have the same opinion in terms of the scale of what has happened in the actions of President Putin. The scale of what has happened in the actions of President Putin, that he's crossed a line, that he is breaching international law, that he's breaching the UN's charter, and they feel certainly it's the time to send a strong message to the Russian president.
We were just hearing a clip from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, a great deal of concern about the humanitarian impact of an attack on Ukraine. What does Europe have a plan or a strategy for dealing with the human cost of this, with casualties and refugees expected to be one of the consequences?
Well, it's certainly something I actually raised at the weekend with the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, when she spoke to...
Oh, shit. When the U.S. drove 5 waves of NATO expansion eastward and all the way to Russia's doorstep, did it ever think about the consequences of pushing a big country to the wall? Oh, shit. Yeah, they're... Wait, when is this? Is from yesterday. This is not from today. This is from yesterday. I didn't even fucking know that this was the take. Statement contains more parts about historical background on U.S. imperialism. They're saying they cornered a wounded animal. China isn't going to do anything. I mean, it just means that they're going to remain neutral and not, and most likely they're going to, and yes, they're not wrong, but I mean, I said this earlier today where, like, part of the problem is that we think, you know, we can just roll over Russia, that we can just like fucking, you know, put sanctions on the table, but not actual sanctions that will harm ourselves. Okay. Like sanctions to a degree that would like genuinely hurt the American economy or genuinely hurt the European economies. Okay. Obviously we're not going to go to fucking war, like active war, because that would mean nuclear war. Okay, and ultimately, it's the people of Ukraine that are getting fucked because they're in the middle of the conflict. Yes, they are wrong. The situation has nothing to do with NATO. This is a Russian propaganda point. Stop promoting it. Dude. If someone is a madman, and I said this already, but if someone is a fucking madman and they're crazy, but they tell you, like, I want fucking Ukraine. I want Ukraine. Especially because you are fucking decommunizing, you're fucking healing to the Western influence. You're becoming a threat to my regional sovereignty. If you don't fucking stop it, like, we'll force you to stop it. And to the rest of the Western world, if you're gonna continue with this shit, like, we're gonna show you what we mean. That doesn't mean it's right, by the way. It's not. It is still morally abhorrent behavior. Still absolutely fucking disgusting what Russia did. Okay, completely unacceptable. And I would go so far as to say entirely counterproductive to the ultimate goals that Putin espouses. Okay, I'm not talking about the propaganda points about like denazification or whatever, which of course ironically will make this country, Ukraine, more nationalist as a consequence of being invaded. That's what countries do historically. They rely on nationalist forces, will do the justifiable violence to save the rest of the country, will do everything they can when they are being invaded. Okay? Yes, it's NATO's fault for invading another country. Dude, shut up. Shut the fuck up. Like, that's not... I'm in the process of describing to you that this is like Russia... This is Russia's fault. I'm in the process of describing to you that how this is Russia's fault, but you do not want to even fucking comprehend, like, any sort of exhaustion of any sort of concessions. Like, this guy has been spamming this. There's been 15 diplomatic contacts to Russia ongoing since December 2021, 6 of which were by the U.S. This has got to be a fucking bot, okay? I mean, literally, dono wall. 6 of which were by the U.S., most of any country. You yourself didn't believe the U.S. intelligence and that war would occur. So isn't it easy to complain in hindsight for more diplomacy, Hassan? Okay. None of those conversations, none of those fucking conversations had a single piece to do with revitalizing or having a neutralization conversation. None of them came with concessions. This is what happens when you assume that Russia, a superpower with the world's largest nuclear arsenal, or China, okay, is the same as Iraq, is the same as Afghanistan. I already addressed this issue. America thinks everyone is fucking Iraq. America thinks everyone's Afghanistan. They behave like they're fucking not dealing with another regional power. You think Russia would invade a NATO nation? I don't think so. I don't think Russia would invade a NATO nation. But there are certain nations that Russia will invade because how much NATO has fucking expanded. It's a constant fucking... I mean, to be fair though, I don't even know, honestly. I don't even know at this point. Because, you know, I didn't think that he would invade Ukraine either, especially to the degree that he did. Dude, Ukrainians, shut the fuck up about nationalism not being the same as fascism, okay? Please. Please, dude. Please. Like, you make yourself look fucking stupid when you say that, okay? The person who's claiming to be fucking Ukrainian over and over again in my chat, like, nationalism is not the same as fascism. Yeah, dude, tell me. Yeah, no, you're right. Totally, dude. Like... You're being invaded? Dude, you think that that person is actually fucking, like, literally being invaded at the moment in Ukraine and typing in my chat to defend nationalism, to defend the distinction between nationalism and fascism? Shut the fuck up. Okay. I think you are just another biased American. Nationalism and fascism are not even close. Look at a dictionary. Dude, a lot of fucking people are gonna start saying shit like this.
Back into the 20s over the week.
Yeah, dude, when National Socialists were doing nationalism, it was the nationalism part that made it fascist, not the fake socialism part that made it fascist. I hope you understand that. Nationalism is how you get to fascism, okay? It's literally kind of the component that makes fascism what it actually is. And also, we're talking about the actual fucking...
Already died. During the meetings, President Putin announced a special military operation in the Donbass and required the Ukrainian troops to lay down their arms. So in the present circumstances,
as of 2022, Russia had about 4,447 warheads, 1,500 of which are deployed on ballistic missiles and heavy bomber bases, with another roughly 977 strategic warheads. What the fuck? According to the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists 2 hours ago.
Circumstances, I must change my appeal. And I must say, President Putin, in the name of humanity, bring your troops back to Russia. In the name of humanity, do not allow to start in Europe what could be the worst war since the beginning of the century. What is clear for me is that this war doesn't make any sense. It violates the principles of the Charter, and it causes, or will cause, if it doesn't stop, a level of suffering Europe has not known since at least the volcanic crisis.
That is the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres speaking last night at the UN Security Council, an emergency meeting that was called as Russia then began the invasion of Ukraine. Yanis Varoufakis, your response to his comments, do you think the UN has any more power than what you're saying is now an eviscerated European Union?
Not. Antonio Guterres made a moving speech, a good speech. But he mentioned the Charter of the United Nations and the need to respect it. Well, there's no doubt that Putin is not respecting it. And we should do our utmost to make sure that he does respect it, or that he pays a price for not respecting it. But at the same time, let's not forget, Amy, now we are old enough to remember how the United Nations Charter was absolutely violated, turned into a piece of paper with no value whatsoever by George W. Bush when he invaded Iraq without any permission or any due process involving the United Nations. Even before that, in 1999, NATO bombarded Yugoslavia, and the Clinton administration back then dismissed the United Nations, bypassed the United Nations, effectively rendered it inoperative. So the United Nations is a fine idea. Internationalism is the only way forward. But I'm afraid that Antonio Guterres is, the chief in an empty tent.
I'm looking at a tweet from New York Times reporter. Anti-war solo pickets like this are popping up in cities across Russia. It's not much, but they're arrested almost immediately, often upon leaving their homes when the cops know to expect them. Here's Sofia Rusova, co-chair of Russia's trade union of journalists, and a handful of anti-war protesters has gathered outside of Ukraine's embassy in Moscow, and they're arrested. What about the population inside Russia? Who stands to gain from this and who loses? In fact, won't the sanctions strengthen the hand, even though some of Russia's billionaires are targeted by the sanctions? If they're cut off from the rest of the economy outside, it is those billionaires' businesses inside that Russia will have to depend on.
Well, I'm ever so glad that you mentioned the anti-war movement within Russia, because our best comrades, our best friends and collaborators in bringing about peace are the Democrats in Russia, the Democrats in China, the Democrats in the United States of America, small d Democrats. I'm not referring to the ruling party. And it is always important that we ask ourselves the question, whenever we do something or suggest something or propose a policy, what effect is this going to have on the Democrats in Russia? And I very much fear that the West is behaving as if with the sole purpose in mind to strengthen Putin against the Democrats in Russia. Because when you encircle Russia with NATO troops and NATO nuclear weapons, you are giving Putin very powerful arguments within Russia to effectively continue the oppression of Democrats in Russia. This war is the result on the
This is the classic dichotomy. all the time. This is why I know people get super triggered when we bring up like the West's involvement in this circumstance. And this does not mean that Vladimir Putin is not a bad guy or anything. And it's not Vladimir, like the West is not goading Vladimir Putin exclusively or urging him to take action or anything. But this has happened time and time again. America goes in, or Western nations go in somewhere, okay, and they fuck shit up. And the people in that country, that are progressive, people in that country that are fighting against their oppressive authoritarian government, now have to focus on the external factor, okay? And that's precisely what happens all the time, okay? One of the immediate examples I can give you from this is when in Turkey, when the coup d'etat happened, okay, the last coup, where America's very own CIA asset, Fethullah Gülen, was able to launch a failed coup in Turkey. And the country basically got together and supported Erdogan, despite the fact that Erdogan was not popular at the time, despite the fact that his popularity was waning, despite the fact that there were plenty of fucking people who despised Erdogan. There are plenty of people in my chat who fucking despise Erdogan. I hate Erdogan, right? But we all certainly hate Fethullah Gülen even more than Erdogan. Thank you. Okay? Fethullah Gülen is a CIA asset. He lives in the Poconos. He's a fucking religious cleric. And he had his tentacles basically in all of like the Turkish criminal justice system, police force, army. Okay? He was able to launch like basically like sleeper cells pretty much. Okay? And he would never have been able to do that without America's support. Now, that created a system where Erdogan was able to then declare martial law and do a referendum on changing the constitution of Turkey and changing Turkey from a parliamentary system to a presidential one, basically creating a system where he had even more power. He had awesome powers. Okay? And extend his regime and the lifeline of his regime, despite the fact that he is authoritarian. And that happened because of Western involvement in the country. I'm giving you information that is near and dear to me from my life, okay? And from my personal experience and from what I know. And when that happens, and when that happened in Iran, the identical situation occurred. Okay? You always are going to make it so much harder for a country to deal with these issues on its own when America gets involved with it, with the country's affairs. Okay? When NATO encircles Russia, in the eyes of the Russian public, which otherwise would protest Vladimir Putin, they will see NATO as a legitimate Western force, nuclear superpower that is surrounding their country with military bases. I know people say it's a defensive pact, but that is how it's seen. Okay? And it's also not so much of a defensive pact when NATO ends up not being so defensive in other countries. Maybe not Russia, but proxy war with Russia over Libya, over not NATO in this situation, but Syria. Okay? And I'm talking about people who would otherwise despise Vladimir Putin. You're weakening their resolve whenever you meddle in this country's affairs. Okay? That's just how it happens historically, and that's how it will continue to happen. Just like when Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine, you are when Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine, you are galvanizing some of the worst, most reactionary fucking forces and their impact. Even if they are unpopular in the eyes of the Ukrainian people, they will no longer continue to be unpopular in the eyes of the Ukrainian people because now they are seen as an emancipatory force. They are the liberators now, okay? And that will be remembered. Zelensky will be remembered as a weak leader that needs to that needs to be replaced with someone else who actually is going to show a strong force against Russia. And the same goes for America as well. That makes the country overall way worse. Even if the United States does not successfully facilitate a coup d'etat and put in position of power a reactionary leader like they have done in Latin American countries so many times, even if that fails, you are then strengthening the leadership that is reactionary, that comes and takes control and and points itself as a anti-imperialist, anti-Western force, the liberator, the force for good, for the good of the people. Okay? That's what's happening. Western involvement is causing that legitimate, that Hassan is chud. You are so off point, always talking about NATO. Shut the fuck up, okay? Anomalous jumps in radiation levels recorded in Kiev region near Chernobyl. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Not 3.8 Röntgen. Not great, not terrible. Sorry. That's not good. Not good at all. I don't even know what to say about that. Okay, let's continue.
On the one hand, of NATO expansionism, and on the other hand, of course, crucially, the great glee with which Putin grabs the opportunity that the United States and NATO and Europe give him to have this war in order to enhance his authority.
Bro, why listen to this neocon? This person worked with Mike Pompeo. Check your source piece. Yanis Varoufakis, who is the fucking socialist leader of Progressive International. You're calling him a neocon? Yeah, he's a little bit too much of a fucking pan-European supremacist. For sure. There is a little bit of too much of that, like, you know, he maybe loves Europe a little too much, okay? That's a reasonable thing to say. But, like, you know, he literally a socialist. Also worked at Valve, too.
His brutal, cruel authority over the good people, the good Democrats of Russia.
Well, we want to thank you so much, Yanis Varoufakis, for joining us. We're hoping also to be joined by a peace activist from Ukraine, but he had to make his way into a war underground shelter in Kiev. I also want to say about the peace movement in the United States. I know that Code Pink has Saturday called for an emergency rally online to demand no war in Ukraine. I think it's particularly important for the corporate media to pay attention. They're going to be featuring peace activists from the U.S., UK, Ukraine, Russia, Germany, France. How important it is to hear those voices as well. Yanis Varoufakis, member of the Greek Parliament, former finance minister of Greece, founder of the Progressive International with Senator Bernie Sanders. Thank you so much. That does it for our broadcast. Democracy Now! Is job openings, human resources management.
I don't know where we're at with the Kiev strike that was reportedly going to happen. Wait, what the fuck?
The Russian military offensive follows a carefully choreographed strategy of Russia's President Vladimir Putin. He unilaterally recognized two
This is the exact same take that John Mersheimer has, who is a respected foreign policy scholar and was almost alone in opposing Ukraine's decision to give up its nuclear weapons in 1994, predicting that it would inevitably face Russian aggression without a nuclear deterrent. People saying you're clueless are Pepega. This is the 1 hour and 40-minute lecture that he gave on this thing that he wrote. But I've refused to fucking watch it because it's way too long to watch on stream. One hour from now. Exactly 1 hour from now. There are reports coming in from Ukrainian intelligence that states that Russia is potentially going to... Wait, hold on. Two things. One thing is two separate reports coming in from Ukrainian intelligence. This is like the OSINT guy who is posting about them, but two separate reports coming in from Ukrainian intelligence. One saying... one stating that there are the special ops guys, sabotage groups. Looks like Russian SSO specialists with helices and vans in Belarus. Zelensky said there were sabotage groups in Kiev. These are the type of guys he's likely referring to. Here they are moving along the R37 highway towards Narulya Mazir. And then the other report is that there will be a bombing campaign in Kiev once again tonight, 3 a.m. Ukraine time, as in an hour. I didn't say R34, I said R37. Did I say R34? Anyway. Still don't understand how you left warriors believe Russia is a real counterbalance to the U.S. I don't think that. I think China is a better counterbalance to the United States than Russia is. We are the only thing keeping the world from breaking out into all-out war with the ad breaks. Oh, come on, dude. I'm going to stop. I live 10 kilometers from the Ukraine-Polish border. We're already receiving migrants. I fear there's going to be a big movement in Poland against letting them in because of Ukraine's endorsement of Bandera. And I get where they're coming from, but right now Ukrainians need help, and I hope most of us will get that. Bro. You have to stop. I'm going to stop reading chatters going forward if this is how you're going to keep doing this. Okay? You keep baiting me with the ad breaks when I think you're going to give me actually good, useful information. Or at least bring up an interesting talking point. Okay? But at the top of the hour, there's a 60-second ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. Anyway, let's watch the one thing that
demilitarization of the country.
At an afternoon meeting with businessmen, no one admitted to Vladimir Putin any worries about sanctions. Russia's central bank says it's got $631 billion in cash reserves to cushion the economy if it's closed off from the global financial system.
People keep saying Zelensky is Jewish. Like, I know. And also, he's just a centrist neolib, okay? But there are, Jewish Ukrainian people that are quite literally a part of the right sector, which is a neo-Nazi paramilitary. So, if you don't have a better understanding of what's going on in Ukraine, just don't say that. Zelensky is not a Nazi. But, just being like, oh, he's Jewish is not going to absolve him from being a neo-Nazi in this circumstance. Considering that there are literally, actual Jewish people Ukrainian Jewish people in right sector are fucking literally, what the fuck did I just watch? Holy shit.
UN estimates that around 100,000 Ukrainians have fled their homes. Well, Russia's president has said that he had no option but to order what he's calling a special operation against Ukraine.
Мы просто не оставили никаких шансов поступить иначе.
We were not given any other chance to act otherwise in the security area. We couldn't react any other way. All our tries came to no result, and we didn't move any further, not even an inch. We had to do it because the risks were very serious for the whole existence of our country. Secondly, we totally understand which world we're living in, and we're ready for what's about to happen with sanctions.
Western powers are hitting Russia with more sanctions. The US is blocking the
Both Georgia and Ukraine have occupied territories. They are not eligible for entry unless they give up claims on those territories, which they obviously won't. Yeah. Part of the reason is so that they can't. The part of the fucking land grab is to strategically make sure that they can't as well.
Putin chose this war. And now he and
Which, for the record, like, no disrespect to Warger, no disrespect to the Georgians, no disrespect to the Ukrainians, but, like, the reason why I say the West is fucking part of this, the West is part of the fucking problem, is because leading up to 2008, before the Georgian incursion, okay, guess what? The United States of America's greatest fucking president, the most bloodthirsty administration of all, decided to fuck that up too, and said, hey, how about we get Georgia and Ukraine into NATO? That is literally that in the aftermath of the GWB administration, which was bloodthirsty and psychotic in fucking Iraq, Afghanistan, war on terror, all of that. George W. Bush also was like, let's throw another fucking wrench out there. What an impactful president. Look at what Biden's CIA director said at the time about that. Oh, this is from WikiLeaks, yeah. Ukraine and Georgia's NATO aspirations not only touch a raw nerve in Russia, they engender serious concerns about the consequences for stability in the region. Not only does Russia perceive encirclement and efforts to undermine Russia's influence in the region, but it also fears unpredictable and uncontrolled consequences which would seriously affect Russian security interests. Experts tell us that Russia is particularly worried that the strong divisions in Ukraine over NATO membership, with much of the ethnic Russian community against membership, could lead to a major split involving violence or, at worst, civil war. Oh man, that's such a crazy thing. This is, by the way, this is in 2008. In that eventuality, Russia would have to decide whether to intervene, a decision Russia does not want to have to face. Some of you yelling at me about fucking Russia and NATO and how much of a piece of shit I am for even bringing Western involvement into the conversation were being born at that time, I think.
Some Ukrainians are fleeing to neighboring Poland.
Just shattered, not for myself, I don't care about my own safety. I care about Ukraine.
She has family.
And Ukrainians. I'm of Ukrainian heritage, and to see this happening to the country is just devastating. I just can't believe someone could be so evil.
President Vladimir Putin announced the invasion on a televised, pre-recorded address.
Here it is. U.S. President George W. Bush vowed on Tuesday to press for Ukraine and Georgia to be allowed to start the process of joining NATO despite resistance from Russia and skepticism from the alliance's European members. Bush in Kiev, on his way to his farewell NATO summit in Romania, said Moscow had no right to veto bids by the two ex-Soviet states. There was no link between their ambitions and a planned U.S. missile defense system in Europe, he added. Washington has long lobbied for Ukraine and Georgia to be granted membership action plans at the Bucharest summit. Russia denounces the bids on grounds that NATO is intruding on its sphere of influence, and France said it would oppose granting the membership action plans to the two ex-Soviet states. This motherfucker literally ruined the planet in every way that he could. Incredible stuff. Except this didn't happen, so it means, oh, so I guess it just it just was an accident that then all of a sudden, literally what you are watching in front of your eyes unfold happened exactly in fucking Georgia. Georgia first, and then Ukraine now. Well, in 2014, and then once again now. So Bush tried to help Ukraine and he was the bad guy? Lol. Dude, I feel like chatters fucking hear this and they literally go, hey, Russia does not have a red line. Like, there is just no red line. They just do not have the capacity. It's not right or wrong, okay? What Russia is doing in this situation is not right or wrong. I'm not ascribing like a moral value to it. I'm just simply showing you what their reasoning is and why they're operating in the way that they do, if you want to understand why they operate the way that they do. Putin is a bad guy. Putin is the bad guy in this situation. But bad guys still operate on the principle of self-defense. Bad guys still have personal interests in the actions that they take. They don't just fucking do bad things just because they want to be bad. Okay? And if you can't understand why bad people do bad things, then you're no different than, I don't know, some fucking 14-year-old child. You might not agree with that, but that's where it comes down. That's where these decisions come from. Okay? This is not a justification. This is an explanation. An explanation that at the time, the American government absolutely understood. Of course they did. And that's why there are so many foreign policy people that also have routinely brought this take up over and over again. But what Putin did goes even beyond the red line, like bombing Western Ukraine and all this other shit. Like, is a complete psychopathic way to fucking deal with this. Like, it's full scale. It goes way beyond what is necessary. Like, it's like he threw the kitchen sink. Anyway. Okay.
If I understand correctly, that Russia is going to threaten the Eastern Europe. So answering your question, I think that
I have to pee. I'll be back.
demilitarization of Ukraine could be done when all the military units, military units who are shelling the peaceful citizens of Donetsk and Lugansk Republic will be eliminated, and when there will be a situation that nothing would be dangerous for the citizens of Donetsk and Lugansk republics.
So the suggestion seems to be then, are you saying, Vladimir, in your understanding, that Putin simply wants to eliminate Ukraine's military abilities? That seems a very difficult thing.
I'm not contemplating that. I mean, I don't know, actually. I'm not a state employee.
Understood.
No, I don't know.
I'm just asking in your understanding or analysis of the situation.
This is just my understanding. That's right.
Right. Let's bring Lawrence Corbyn. Lawrence, how long...
You're always ignoring people from the region in chat because it ruins your discourse? No, I'm not. We know why Russia operates like this, and U.S. involvement is of minimal importance. That's what you do not understand. We have dealt with this for 7 decades. If it wasn't for NATO, it would have been EU. Russia does not want us to live like we want. Dude, I don't know why you keep fucking bringing this up. Like, if you're at a moment's notice, if you're about to be fucking invaded by Russia, why are you defending the sanctity of the United States? Like, it's a very strange fucking take to just be like, I know that like my country is being shelled by Russia right now, but what I need to do is defend American interests, even though you're showing Americans who are comprehending that saber rattling in this way is 1,000% going to be used as a justification by Russia. Like, what a weird thing, dude. It's just, that's why I don't believe that you're like actually who you say you are. Not defending U.S. I'm saying you're deviating the discussion from what matters, and it makes it all about the U.S. We have bigger worries. Dude, there is no bigger worry than Russia doing what they're doing right now. But there is no alternative. There is no alternative to like this Russian encroachment in this circumstance. There is no alternative because Russia is a nuclear power, and America is not going to do anything other than dangle fucking NATO membership in front of Ukraine and then pump you full of fucking guns so that all the grandmas that learned how to fucking use AR-15s could be fucking murdered brutally by Russian troops if this conflict continues. Of course, there's no bigger worry than fucking Russia invading your country. We've been covering it for fucking nonstop. Anyway.
Is rise is the Russian Federation, and the president of Russian Federation and his militant friends, they should be put to international tribunal as criminals against criminal things that they do.
Why would the U.S. want grandmas to die?
You know, and
no, dude, the United States is indifferent to grandmas dying. That's the point. They don't give a shit if grandmas fucking die or not. That's the issue. Jesus Christ. I don't know why you don't see this. They don't give a fuck. Also, potential Kiev bombing is going to happen in 15 minutes.
And this is what he was trying to do at the time. So this is very similar what President is Putin doing now. And only 1 year after 1938, the Second World War began. So this is what the whole world needs to remember now. So we are very close. We are on the brink of something similar. So they need to back down. And they need to apologize to the whole world, and they will have to be put to prison for this.
Let's see how this goes. Let me bring Vladimir back in, and once again pointing out, Vladimir, I know you're not an official spokesperson, you're not an official for the Russian government, so I'm just asking you for your analysis. Does it look like we're going to be looking at the sort of scenario which a lot of Western intelligence agencies were warning about, that there'll be an initial period of strikes, airstrikes, missile strikes, followed maybe a week or so later by a wider deployment of ground troops? Is that what we're looking at?
No, I don't think so, actually. My analysis is that there will be strikes, targeted strikes against military installations in Ukraine. And after that, there will be that is a limitation of all the special operation. And after that, there will be the end of the military operation. I'm not contemplating that there will be occupation, so-called occupation of Ukrainian territory by the
just to jump in, Vladimir, do you really think it's possible, though, that Vladimir Putin will pull out Russian troops completely, well, completely out of Ukraine might be a tall order given the situation in Donbass and Crimea, but at least not beyond the Donbass and Crimea region.
Sorry for my interruption. Please, sorry for my interruption. We're not talking right now about Donbass and Lugansk republics, because this is independent states who are asking formally for the support and defense from Russian Federation. So this is according to national law, in accordance with Article 51, Part 8.
Well, according to international law, a lot would dispute whether Lugansk and Donetsk are indeed independent republics. We know Russia has recognized them, but moving beyond that, let me bring Lawrence back in. I mean, a situation you were hinting at, a la Afghanistan or Iraq. Do you think, Lawrence, Putin would be weary of sending his troops deep into Ukraine, especially as we get towards Western Ukraine? Is it likely that we will see a situation where Russian troops will be pulled back to the eastern and southern parts of Ukraine, at least, rather than getting embroiled into some kind of long-term guerrilla conflict?
Well, you could see that, but then what is your goal? Who's going to be running Ukraine? Will you still have Zelensky there? Will you try and put your own, leader in there? And will the Ukrainian people support him and not create an insurgency? That's the real question.
Bro, if they put a fucking pro-Russian, if they put a pro-Russian leader at the helm of Ukraine and replace Zelensky,
if you haven't achieved your objective.
Okay.
Today we've seen
if they did that, America would never allow that to happen. Like, Ukrainians might actually fight back. Ukrainians might try to fight back and then, like, eventually push back and then fail or succeed, whatever. But America would never, in a million years, America would literally just be like, no shot. No, we are going to put, like, the worst person that you've ever seen. Okay. I mean, it already happened once. So
at the moment, what I can state as a Ukrainian mostly, because my main job is to attract investments and promote economy in Ukraine. But today, I'm an average Ukrainian who was affected. My mom, who is 73 years old, was waking up today in Ivano-Frankivsk by an air response siren. And there was a missile going over the city to hit one of the targets. So this is a crime. I am a lawyer. I'm an international lawyer. This is crime against humanity. So we need to focus on that rather than think about what can be done on the ground or not. Russian military have their plans. Ukrainian military is strong, and we are fighting back. So it's all about military, and they have their own plans. Right. But we need to be clear. The crime has taken place.
Okay. Well, let me go back to Lawrence Korb. Lawrence, Western countries have announced another round of sanctions. How effective do you think they'll be? Russia has been under sanctions for a long time, hasn't it?
Yes, but never to this extent. And I think one of the big things is duck business. They have to export things like wheat. Are people still going to buy that? So they're going to pay a price. The question is, how long is Putin willing to do that, and how long will the Russian people do? And if you go to a ground war, there are going to be lots of casualties. There'll probably be more on the Ukrainian side, but you're talking about 5,000 to 10,000 Russian soldiers being killed. And don't forget, the Russians still have conscription. So these people are not volunteers. A lot of them have been forced in there. So what we need to do is find a face-saving way out before my colleague from Ukraine pointed out this thing gets out of hand and it'll be a disaster.
Let's take the view from Moscow. In your analysis, Vladimir, Russia has large reserves. It's about $600 billion. That's about 40% or more of its GDP. That's more reserves than most countries. How far will that go to cushioning the effect of Western sanctions? Do you think the policymakers in Moscow are worried about Western sanctions?
I think yes. There are two, actually, things, analytically speaking, which are going after your question. The first thing is that Moscow actually has used to live under sanctions, and somehow Russian government actually managed to redeploy economic resources and financial resources under these permanent sanctions, which have been going on for already 8 years. After the 2014. And second element is that I think probably there will be some worsening of economic conditions in Russia. And because of the exchange rate ruble to dollar, you know that ruble is now declining and dollar is rising. But eventually, Russia has a lot of so-called sovereign reserve just to make currency intervention, foreign currency interventions. And I think eventually this bad effect will be again eliminated.
Let's get the
This
view
is
from
my
Kiev.
analysis.
All right, let's get Sergei from Kiev. So, Sergei, it sounds like the leaders in Ukraine are not entirely.
America left the conversation.
And they think Western countries.
How analogous to what's going on currently.
We are thankful to all leaders for what has been done so far. We're thankful to our neighbors.
America was like, yeah, I'm done.
Lithuania,
I already
Latvia,
fucked the shit up. I'm out.
Other countries that provided weapons to Ukraine. We're also thankful to European Union and American friends for sanctions. But we need to remember that this is a Russian operation under a false flag, as was rightly stated by President Biden. And the one way to affect Russia is to limit economic and stop economic cooperation with Russia at the moment. And this has to be done quick. We need to remember that 1/3 of energy supplies to Europe comes from Russia. And all this money...
I like how it announces Russia is good and will win. It's important to hear from the Russian side, no matter how fucking psychotic it sounds.
To act as a tyrant, in the 21st century, and to make a war in the center of Europe. So this is unacceptable. So, as I said, we want to see very strong international response and very quick international response.
What kind of international response do you think most Ukrainians would like to see, Sergei, beyond what the West has already done?
Well, we, of course, would be keen to see some military support. But as we have...
You mean beyond simply supplying weapons? Because it's unlikely, many Western leaders have already said they're not sending their troops to Ukraine, right?
We understand that this is unlikely.
The reason that guy's teeth is fucked up is because he's poor.
But we also want to see real serious sanctions on Ukraine to break down their economy. Not
sanctions
for the sake
on Russia, you mean, just to correct there?
Yes, on Russia, of course, yes. Not for the sake of bringing kind of, I don't know, bad.
I don't know if the Ghost of Kiev story is real, because they've done not the like fucking. I mean, look, good propaganda. I'm happy for the people who are trying to find a dub in this madness and horrible situation. Okay, yeah, 6 minutes. I think the tactical unit that surrendered is also Konstantin Buchanev, head of RU tactical unit, surrendered together with his comrades. We didn't want to kill anyone. The jet plane videos of an old air show. Yeah, I think so too, right? You still topping Putin off? Yeah, dude. I haven't stopped. 13-month subscriber. I love it. Let me look at this motherfucker's chat. I'm snitching on you right now. Joe Biden's home is 2.7 million. You got a more expensive house than Uncle Joe. What happened to this guy? What the fuck happened to this dude? Easy snipe. Man, shut the fuck up, dude. Kind of sad that you're just like looking for attention.
We had stumbled upon and we
all right, here's the
that full.
No longer want to see those ads. All you need to do is subscribe. You can do that for $5, or you can do that for free if you don't have $5 with the Twitch Prime. Here for the ad-free broadcasting experience. Here's the 1 minute ad break now. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. I ran the ad already. Okay. Russian strategic bombers are up. Remember, they earlier in the day, they said, or Ukrainian intelligence stated that there was going to be another bombing